I think the first mint plant I grew was one that I picked up from the grocery store. It was one of those situations where I had a recipe to make. It was probably a mojito, if I'm being honest here. And rather than buy a little pack of mint for $5, I bought a little mint plant. And the great thing about doing this is, with just a little bit of extra work and the right care, you can have a mint plant of your own that will continue giving you mint for months, maybe even years to come. So today we're going to be looking at how to successfully grow mint indoors. I'm going to quickly take you through some of the basic care tips for your mint plant. So here we go. First, let's talk about choosing your mint plant. Now, there are many different varieties to choose from, but spearmint and peppermint are probably the most popular and are great choices for beginners. You can start with small plants from a nursery, or like I said earlier, picking one up from the grocery store, or you can use a cutting from an existing plant. So if you have a friend or somebody in your family maybe who has a mint plant already and it's a healthy plant, just ask them for a cutting from their plant. Once you have the cutting, you can drop it in a cup of water, and in a couple days or a week sometimes, you'll have roots sprouting from that stem. And once you have the roots sprouting from that stem, you can drop it into some soil, and within a couple days, it'll start to take root in that soil, and you'll have a brand new mint plant. We'll talk more about propagation here in just a bit, though. All right, so once you've got your mint plant, it's time to actually pot it. Now, if you get one from a store or nursery, there's a good chance it's going to come in like a really cheap disposable pot. So you'll want to replace that. You'll want to put it in a pot that's going to give it room for the roots to be able to expand and the plant to really grow. I recommend using a medium-sized pot with drainage holes in the bottom so that you can avoid waterlogging. Waterlogging is basically when the plant's getting too much water and the roots become oversaturated. A 6-inch pot is a good place to start for a plant, and then you'll just kind of keep an eye on it. And if the roots need more room, then you'll need to repot it. And now mint loves light. You want to place it near a south-facing window that gets 4 to 6 hours of sunlight daily if possible. If you don't get enough natural light, you can supplement the light with a grow light. And to be honest, a grow light can be a great option regardless, because you can really control exactly how much light it is getting on a daily basis. I'll put a few different grow light options in the description for you to check out. Watering correctly is key when it comes to your mint plant. You don't want to overwater it. You don't want to underwater it. I guess that's pretty much how it is for all plants. But when the top few inches of the soil feels dry to the touch, and you can just do this by sticking your finger in the soil, picking up the pot, eventually you'll get to know your plant. You'll get to know when it needs more water. But remember that overwatering can lead to root rot. So you really, really want to avoid overwatering. And that's going to go back to your pot choice. Now, when it comes to the proper temperature and humidity for a mint plant, mint prefers cooler temperatures, somewhere between 65 and 70 degrees. That really makes it an ideal plant for growing indoors. You'll want to avoid overly humid conditions because they create the proper environment for fungal growth, and that's not a good thing. Feeding your mint is important, and I think it's one of the things that I really overlooked with my first mint plant. You want to use a balanced, all-purpose liquid fertilizer every 4 to 6 weeks. Something like a 10-10-10 ratio fertilizer diluted to half strength is a perfect place to start. Now, when it comes to pruning and harvesting your mint plant, I mean, that's what the end goal is, right? Like, you're trying to grow a mint plant so that you can use it in recipes and drinks and things like that. And pruning doesn't just keep your plant from getting too big. It actually encourages your plant to grow out and become more of a bushy plant. So regularly pinching off the top leaves can help with this. And when you're harvesting, you want to cut just above the leaf node. So a leaf node is where the leaves come off of the stem. So that is the node, and you want to cut right above that. Now let's talk about pest control. You definitely want to keep an eye out for pests on your mint plant, especially aphids and spider mites. Aphids you'll typically notice underneath the leaves of the mint plant, and spider mites you can typically tell because there'll be little webs on your plant, and that's an indication of spider mites. If you see any of these, you can use either a mild soap and water solution to gently clean the leaves, or you can use something like neem oil. Now, once you've had success with one mint plant, there's a good chance that you'll want more. The good thing about mint is it's one of the easiest plants to propagate, and propagating is just the process of creating new plants from an existing mature plant. So you can do this with 3 steps. The first step is to get a healthy stem cutting from your mature plant. Then you're going to prepare the stem, and then you'll place it in water. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to cut a piece of stem off the existing mint plant. You want a piece that's about 4 to 6 inches long. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut it directly below the leaf node. And from earlier in the video, I showed you the leaf node. The leaf node is the point where the leaves come off of the stem. So where that point is on the plant, make sure that you've got 4 to 6 inches, and then you want to cut directly below that. Now, the next step is going to be preparing the stem. So preparing the stem is basically removing all of the leaves off of the stem except for, I'd say, 3 to 4 at the top of the stem. And once you've done that, you're going to place this stem cutting into either a cup or a glass or a jar of fresh water. And this is where the magic will happen. Now, you'll start to notice in as little as a couple of days potentially, especially if you use a rooting hormone. I'll put a link to my favorite rooting hormone in the description of this video. I think that the rooting hormone really helps the plant take root faster, helps the cutting take root faster, and you'll start to see little tiny hairs, which will eventually turn into roots, come off that main stem. Now, probably after about a week's time, you'll notice that the roots are getting longer and longer. Once they get to a point where you feel like they're long enough, you can actually take those stem cuttings out of the water and plant them in some fresh potting soil. Now, I just want to leave you with a couple last things here before we wrap the video up. One of them is make sure you watch out for overwatering. I think that's one of the most common issues that people have with plants in general, and mint is really no different. A sign of overwatering is yellow leaves. And then another thing is make sure that your plant has good air circulation. This is, again, just another good rule of thumb. It helps prevent diseases. So there you have it. Mint truly is one of the easiest and best herbs to grow indoors. Hopefully you found this video helpful and learned a few things. If you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you'd like the video so that others can find it as well. And subscribe so that you don't miss future videos about growing plants.